Good evening, everyone. My name is Brenton Schneider. I'm a sergeant with the Marin County Sheriff's Office and currently acting as the Woodward Fire Incident Public Information Officer. Thank you for joining us today for this town hall. I'd like to start with some introductions of some of our panelists and some elected officials that we have here. I'd first like to start by introducing Carrie Fire Robin. She is the acting superintendent for the Point Reyes National Seashore. We also have with us Bernard Spielman, the Woodward Fire Incident Commander, Jason Weber, Marin County Fire Chief, Ray Krakauer, bellinas Fire Chief, Jim Fox, Inverness Fire Chief, Jared Huffman, U.S. Congressman, Dennis Rodoni, Marin County District 4 Supervisor, Mark Levine, California Assemblyman, and also Mike Mcguire, California Senator. Thank you all for joining us. We'd like to start out the town hall with some comments from some of our elected officials, and we'll go ahead and start with Supervisor Dennis Rodoni. I think you're still muted, Dennis.
Forgot the most important thing. Welcome to all the listeners tonight. Thank you, Sergeant. I want to start out by just thanking all the neighbors here in the Olema Valley and the residents for being prepared, heeding the warning, being prepared to evacuate if needed, and continuing to do that. It's been 3 days, 4 days now we've been on the warning, and we're continuing to get prepared to evacuate if we have to. So I want to thank all my neighbors and residents in the valley here. I also want to thank the county staff and local residents who rushed out Tuesday night to set up a shelter in a very quick fashion. And special thanks to the local, state, and federal fire agencies who have coordinated this fire and have kept it in the park and out of our community. So thank you so much. Coordinating this fire has been a collaborative effort between the County of Marin and NPS, and that's worked really well. And certainly CAL FIRE's support can't go unrecognized. Those planes and copters were certainly welcome. And as I sit here in my home desk, I see the planes continuing to shuttle back and forth between Tomales Bay tonight. So thank you to CAL FIRE. Lastly, I want to give a huge thanks to the men and women on the fire lines throughout the state and in Marin County, including the thousands who are supporting our firefighters, preparing food, other supplies, coordinating the community outreach, setting up shelters, and the many other necessary duties to keep the entire system working. Special thanks to Henry One from Sonoma County and the CHP helicopter for their efforts last night in retrieving a couple of our firefighters who were in danger. And I also want to thank my elected colleagues who are joining me here tonight for your continued support. Jared, Mike, and Mark, you have been supporting us all along, clearly showing you care for our community and its well-being. We are truly very fortunate being represented by such a caring, compassionate trio. And as Marin County's Director of Emergency Services, I couldn't let this opportunity go by without asking for everyone to sign up for alertmarin.org and continue to prepare to evacuate if asked. Check on your neighbors, have your go bag ready, and be safe, remembering we're in the middle of this pandemic. We're just in the beginning of this fire season, and each of us being prepared makes a big difference to how effective our emergency services can be. So thank you, and I'm looking forward to the update tonight.
Thank you, Supervisor. I'd now like to welcome Mark Levine, California Assemblyman, for some opening remarks.
Thank you very much, Sergeant Schneider. All my gratitude goes to the first responders keeping us safe. May they be safe. With over 13,000 firefighters on the front lines of nearly 24 major fires and lightning complexes across California, it is easy to feel overwhelmed and outmatched by both nature and the climate crisis. It isn't every week that 12,000 lightning strikes result in over 580 new wildfires as we enter what used to be called fire season. When the threat of fire nears, I recall a time a couple of years ago that I arrived home to Greenbrae from the capital like any other afternoon. But there was one difference. As I entered my house, I could smell smoke, kind of like we can today. I checked around, and although I heard distant sirens, I didn't sense I was in any danger. Then I heard a knock at the front door. A Marin County Sheriff's deputy advised that it was time for me to evacuate. I listened to her. I got in my car. I witnessed what must have been a dozen or more firefighters with gear marching up my road. And as I exited my neighborhood, saw Central Marin Police monitoring the entrance to my neighborhood, ensuring safe egress and that no vehicles entered. Fortunately, there was little property damage and no one was injured in that day's fire. I was impressed by this quick demonstration of order during a time of chaos, but I wasn't surprised. On my visits to incident commands here in Marin for local fires, in Sonoma, or in Butte County for the Camp Fire, I saw firsthand how rigorous training and preparation can lead to order. We don't need to feel powerless against the threat of wildfire. We can create defensible space, pack a go bag, and evacuate when it is time so that first responders have the very best chance to save human life and protect property. Thank you, and be safe.
Thank you, Assemblyman Levine. I really appreciate you being here today. I'd now like to welcome Mike Mcguire, California Senator.
Good evening. Thank you so much for allowing me to be with you today. And I want to take a moment to say thank you to Chief Weber, Chief Fox, and of course, Chief Krakauer for all of their work, and all the local Marin County firefighters who have been working this incident and breaking their backs here, into CAL FIRE for the air support. The state has remained in constant contact with Marin County Fire and all the local fire agencies prepared to assist, especially if that fire looks like it's going to start encroaching on the beautiful communities of Bellinas and Inverness. We're truly living in unprecedented times when it comes to wildland fires here in the state of California. You just heard the statistics from Assemblymember Mark Levine. Never in our modern history have we been so stretched with our state's mutual aid system, which is the gold standard here in the United States. That said, everyone, every community, and various states are stepping up. The state of California has reached deep into the federal mutual aid system, and we are now starting to see resources coming in from multiple states, including Nevada, Washington, and New Mexico. We have mobilized the National Guard, who are on multiple California fires, 20 12-person hand crews, along with 9 airships, helicopters that are now active and engaged. I want to take a moment to be able to also say thank you to the nations of Canada and Australia. We've requested international aid as well, and it looks like we're going to start seeing additional resources coming in from those 2 nations. And finally, I want to take a moment to acknowledge Supervisor Rodoni for his ongoing leadership in West Marin, Congressman Huffman and Levine for their incredible work. This is truly an all-hands-on-deck effort. No expense is being spared here in the state of California to be able to beat back these historic wildfires and to be able to protect the communities that make this state so great. Thank you, and I look forward to being with you here throughout the evening.
Thank you very much, Senator. Now I'd like to introduce Jared Huffman, U.S. Congressman.
Thank you, Brenton. And it is really important for those watching right now, I think, that they see a very unified team of local, state, and federal representation. Your elected officials are here shoulder to shoulder to make sure that Marin County gets all of the resources that are available and necessary to keep you safe and to protect this beautiful place. So I am honored to be with my colleagues. All of them are absolutely dedicated to making sure that that happens. I want to start with a huge shout out to this skeleton crew that was forced to respond to this fire. I don't mean to belittle the efforts in any way of Marin County Fire and the National Park Service, the dynamic duo that's been in large part carrying the full brunt of the response for the first few days of this fire. But in ordinary times, there would have been many more assets brought together from many more agencies, and you have had to carry all of that on your own. As if that wasn't difficult enough, you had to do it in the middle of a pandemic that's fundamentally changed the way we even respond to fighting fire. You don't stand up fire camps the way you ordinarily would. You don't marshal your assets and deploy them in the same way you would. And you had to do it while there are all of these other fires going on all over Northern California that have claimed so many of the assets that we'd ordinarily have available to us. So it's a heck of a difficult series of circumstances, and you've done a great job keeping this fire. Last I checked, around 2,200 acres. And that's in large part a testament to your incredible good work. So I just want to say, I hope this fire never comes anywhere close to the level of a federal major disaster declaration. It would require a lot of structural loss and other damage that I think we should be able to avoid with these great efforts, especially now that we're bringing air assets to bear. But should that kind of federal support be necessary, you're going to have it. Congressman Thompson and myself and our entire Northern California delegation are working very closely. We've already secured the granting of those declaration requests for other areas that have sustained that type of damage. And we're going to make sure that the local government resources that were already strained before this fire because of the pandemic, as you have to step up and stretch those resources to fight this fire, we'll make sure that there's federal support for you as needed. So just want to say one more thing about federal support. Sometime tonight, we expect that National Guard resources will be flying over the skies of the North Bay. That's important because some of the drone technology that they have can see through the haze and the smoke and tell us if lightning strikes spark any new fires. So it's really important, I think, that we're bringing those type of technologies and assets online because we've got a bit of a dicey 24 to 48 hours ahead of us. The experts will tell you more about that. But we are here to support. We are here to help. Your fire officials at the county, Park Service, state, and other levels are just doing a heroic job. And I'm here to support you in any way I can. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you so much, Mr. Huffman. I'd now like to carry on to Carrie Firerobin, who is the acting superintendent for the Point Reyes National Seashore. Carrie?
Hi, good afternoon, and thank you all for joining us. I'm Carrie Firerobin, acting superintendent out here at Golden Gate. Golden Gate, that's normally where I am. I'm out at Point Reyes National Seashore, and I want to thank all of our partners. First off, at the county, you have been so fundamentally instrumental in this, helping us navigate these last few days. What was already a solid partnership, the foundation has only gotten even more solid, and we have excellent, tireless efforts, leadership, expertise, and skills being witnessed every day in and out. So I want to thank you, especially for the fire department and for the sheriff's office for the services that have been rendered. And I am thrilled to say that we can now share, we're transitioning over into a federal incident management team, which is underway right now and will be in full swing come tomorrow. So you're probably going to see a lot more activity in and around the park and in the neighboring communities as that effort ramps up. And as this effort continues to ramp up, I just want to stress that ensuring safety at all levels and for all people is paramount at this time. To our firefighters, to the incident team members, to our partners, the residents within the park and the adjacent communities, it is absolutely critical that safety is kept in the forefront of all of our minds in every step of the way. People are our most valuable resource, and we remain committed to the safety of our firefighters, especially in the midst of this pandemic. So just as a reminder to that effort, we have actually closed the park to visitors at this point in time to ensure that we can maintain safe, open access to the areas that are where our firefighters need to gain access. And we look forward to that day when we can be back to a stable operation and have the park open and welcome visitors here. But in the meantime, safety is paramount, as I said. So thank you once again for joining us today. We appreciate your patience and bearing with us through this challenging circumstances. Thank you.
Thank you, Carrie. Really appreciate the update and thank you for the support. I'd now like to introduce Incident Commander Bernard Spielman for a fire update.
Good afternoon, everybody. I don't have a map in front of me, so if they pull that back up on the screen, it'll help me describe what's going on and you'll be able to follow along with where it's at. Thank you. So this is the current IAP map that we're operating with. This changes on a regular basis, and this is just one static photo shot of the fire that we're working from, but this continuously develops and changes as the day goes on. I'll start at the Division Zulu Charlie break off the Pacific Ocean and work my way around the fire clockwise. You'll notice we did put some black line on the map. That typically indicates containment. We have the Great Pacific Ocean as our anchor point, and that's what we're building off of. That doesn't mean that we don't have threats to the rest of the fire, and it doesn't necessarily mean that's what we desire for containment. That area we just know that we're not going to send firefighters into, and we're not going to have to deal with much of any issues down there. So working up into Division C, this is where we've been getting a lot of challenge. The fuel type is the coastal scrub along the flats in the front, and that is mixed with some grass. That fuel type is very volatile in the wind, and that was the initial growth of the fire. Once it got established in the drainage and made a pretty good push and run, that is not typical for coastal scrub or fuel types that we normally see on the coast. So that fire behavior was not unprecedented, but was kind of scary. And so that built the initial evacuation warning area based on that fire behavior. But as we move up into Division C, we gain an elevation, and we're going to change fuel types a little bit. So as you know, the mountainsides go from grass and low shrub to taller shrub and trees. So as we go up on that ridge in Division Charlie, we have had some issues trying to hold the fire and keep the fire down in the drainage. Portions of that drainage are holding, portions of that draining are not holding. Fire has a tendency to jump, and we call that spotting. So it is spotted across that creek towards that Division C indicator. And that's where we're focusing efforts today, trying to anchor off and I apologize, I keep pronouncing the road wrong, the Lime Tour Road up on top, and trying to get an anchor point off that road and tie it into the Pacific Ocean. That would help us prevent fire from growing to the north along the coast. We have a good anchor point on the coast, but we need to get something up high in the elevation. Problem there is the vegetation up there is really old dug fir. It is all draped with moss. And because of the uncharacteristic weather that has been happening here on the coast, instead of it being all foggy and drippy and wet, it is extremely dry. One of the indicators that we use to manage fires or give us a heads up on fire behavior is an energy release component. That energy release component in the last week has hit record level highs. And that energy release is an indication of how difficult it is to contain or control an established fire. It measures the first square foot of the flame front and the BTUs that comes off of that fire. It's a mathematical equation, but it gives us an idea of how difficult it's going to be to control or contain an established fire. So like I said, that is at record levels for the area. As we work our way around off that drainage from Division Charlie over into what we call Division Mike, this is the area up at the top of, I believe it's Whitaker Peak or Whitaker Mountain, and I apologize if that's wrong. And then the trail systems that come down into the Bear Valley Trail. That's Division Mike. What we're doing there is a little bit off the map because of that fuel type of those big dug firs and those smaller pines that have a large dead component in them. That area there has been really difficult for us to establish anything. So like Carrie said, firefighter safety is our main concern. That's my job on the fires, to make sure that we be effective, but we also be safe. And I personally do not want injured firefighters that I have to deal with. We're working as hard as we can to try and turn the corner and figure out how to come back down. But we are in what we call indirect line construction and preparations on Division Mike. And that would be up at the area of the park headquarters, the Lime Tour Road, and then down towards the Bear Valley Trail. That's our initial box to try and hem in the northeast spread of the fire. And yes, that is indirect, and there are risks with that. And that's why when we developed or expanded the evacuation warnings to include the rest of Point Reyes up to the community of Point Reyes. And as you all know from living here, that is a choke point for traffic. So I'll let the sheriffs talk more about the evacuation stuff, but that's how we got to that point. The fire spread, continued to move to the northeast, and it indicated to us that we needed to be prepared, and we needed you, the public, to be prepared. As we come down into Division Whiskey, which is the south side of the fire has been kind of hung up in a couple of places in there. We do not have good eyes in that area. For the past week of the fire, that's where the majority of the smoke has been pushing through. We've been working on getting infrared assets to give us a better picture of that area. And we now have a on-site drone that we can operate early in the mornings or late in the evenings when our other aircraft are not up in the air. And that aircraft or that drone operates just like any of our other aircraft. It has to check in and check out and operates just as any other aircraft. It has to have clear airspace. So when you hear all those warnings about if you fly, we can't, that's absolutely true. And that goes for us as well. So we don't mix our drones with our regular aircraft, and they have to clear the same airspace. But as we come down in Division Whiskey, the fire is still kind of hung up on that ridge. It's still a quarter to a half mile from that trail system. And as we come back down to where the Pacific Ocean is, right there at the end off that map, we've worked really hard to try and anchor again off the Pacific Ocean and work our way up that ridge. It is slowed down in that area. Fire activity has decreased, but it's not secure at this time. So we think the Bellina area is getting better. The threats have not increased towards Bellina, but they are still on a watch out. And we want to keep that warning in place just to give you, the public, and the folks down there enough advanced warning to be able to evacuate, to move out. And we don't want those warnings to be long-term, or we don't want you out of your homes for a long time, especially in this age of COVID. So our activities have been focusing in those areas on the ground. And yes, we are both direct line construction and indirect line construction because of the fuel type, the conditions of those fuels, and the risk to firefighter safety. A lot of things that have improved in the last 48 hours for this fire is that we have been getting some resources into the fire area. So as much as all the other fires are doing all their damage and all the activities that are going on, we have been able to get some resources to help anchor this fire. And that's all in addition to the great, outstanding work and support that Marin Fire is providing. And I would like to thank Marin Fire at this time for all their support and help that they've provided to manage the fire. With that, I'll pass it back.
Thank you so much, Bernard. I appreciate that. And I would just like to clear up one thing, and that the actual town of Point Reyes is not evacuated or part of the evacuation warning area. However, like the incident commander stated, the warning does go up to the limits of Point Reyes and Olema, and then west down Sir Francis Drake. And now I'd like to introduce Chief Weber from the Marin County Fire Department, who's going to share my little screen here, and he'll give you an update.
Good afternoon, everybody. You know, I want to start by thanking our elected officials that are here that we've had their ear this entire time. They've been fully supportive, but I know they're also all very busy. So understand completely if they have to step off to join other communities in conversations like this. But want to thank every one of them for being here and supporting us through this. Also, the National Park Service has been a partner You'll hear people. I saw individuals arrive from Pennsylvania today. They may not be able to pronounce the town or a city or a street, and that's okay, because we're standing next to them as local knowledge. They're bringing their firefighter skill sets from across the country, and we certainly appreciate all the support we're getting from everybody. And our incident commander has been fantastic. We've been by his side the entire time. This is a collaborative and cooperative effort, and that's when we do our best work. We understand the stress this is putting on our communities under all kinds of other challenges like COVID. We are doing our best to put this darn thing out and get you back to some normalcy. And we appreciate your patience. We're making good progress, and that's something important for all of you to hear. We're getting additional resources, and we're making good progress. There's over 1 million acres burning right now in California. In my 25 years in the fire service, I've never seen the system so impacted as it is today. I just got off an hour-long conference call with other statewide leadership, federal leadership in the fire service, all working together to make sure we prioritize what limited resources we have to save lives and property and the natural resources. This is the highest level of preparedness we've ever been at across the United States and California simultaneously, and everything is challenged and stressed. The firefighters have been engaged since the initial attack when this fire started Tuesday. We've been fully engaged on this fire from day one, from the first hour of this starting. We'll stay engaged till the end. New fires that start are our priority in this county. We can't afford to have another large fire. So if we pull resources from this for a short period of time, it's because we're fighting a new fire, and we've got to keep that fire small. We expect some weather over the weekend that's going to challenge us. Again, the highlight and what the sheriff's office will talk about is your cooperation, being prepared, signing up for Alert Marin, and understanding when we ask you to leave an area, we need you to do that. This is also a time to highlight how important defensible space is around your home and being prepared. Now's the time to act. We've got to create defensible space around our homes so we can protect you during a fire. Again, I want to thank all the cooperators, our local fire agencies here in Marin County, bellinas Fire, Inverness Fire, all of the other fire agencies in the county, the National Park Service, and the many firefighters from across the nation that are here to help us. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chief. And now I'd like to introduce Greg Krakauer from the Bellinas Fire.
Good afternoon, everyone. George Krakauer here. No worries.
Oh, sorry.
Not a problem. Want to thank, first of all, the team who worked together to hold this meeting on short notice. And secondly, and most importantly, to the crews on the ground and in the air working to actively fight this fire. I want to thank the Marin County Fire Department and the National Park Service, who have been great partners working alongside the Stinson, Inverness, and Bellinas Fire Districts. I really feel it's important to us, and especially the ones currently under the evacuation warning, that accurate updates and answers to important questions come from credible sources and not hearsay. So thank you for providing this opportunity. It means a lot to our communities. I want to reiterate that a warning means to be prepared and ready to leave. We must trust the experts that if you should need to leave, they will provide ample time and they will upgrade the warning to an order. Thank you, and I appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Now I'd like to welcome Jim Fox, the Inverness Fire Chief.
Good evening. Well, I'm glad George went first because I pretty much can echo everything that George says in terms of our gratitude for County Fire, the Park Service, and all the resources to get this level of participation from all these agencies, given how stressed the entire state is. This has been really, really wonderful. And like George said, I urge our citizens to follow the directions because we're very plugged into what's going on with the fire, and we'll try and give the most accurate update and information, hopefully through our local radio station. They do a very good job of vetting information that comes out of our radio station. And that's pretty much it.
Thank you so much, Chief. I'd now like to talk about, as representative of the Marin County Sheriff's Office, the evacuation warnings that are in place. The reason we put the evacuation warnings in place is out of abundance of caution and to make sure that our residents were prepared and had time to get everything ready that they needed in the case that we did have to issue evacuation orders. I know there's been some concern in the community about the staffing levels out here, and I can assure you that we've worked with Supervisor Rodoni and Sheriff Doyle and him have been talking, and that we have extra staffing out here. We have sufficient staffing to make sure that if we do have to evacuate any communities out here, we have the staffing that is necessary for that. So I wanted to put the community at ease. Another reminder to that is that if we do have to evacuate, you need to make sure that you're registered for Alert Marin and Nixle. Your primary way to be notified will be via Alert Marin. It'll be followed up with a Nixle. And then another thing to listen for is if you hear deputies driving through your neighborhood with a high-low siren, which is a European sounding siren, that's an indicator to you that you need to evacuate. I know that there was also some concern on social media about the closure of bellinas Fairfax Road due to the red flag warning and also because of the limited fire resources that we have. I can assure you that deputies that are working out here have keys to that gate. There's multiple people out here that have keys to that gate. And if we do have to evacuate any of our communities, and that is going to be an exit route, we will make sure that that is open for another avenue of escape if necessary. In addition to that, I'd like to talk about the evacuation warning areas. We currently have the community of bellinas northwest of Highway 1 all the way up to Olema, and the northern intersection of Sir Francis Drake and Highway 1 just before you get into Point Reyes. If you continue out Sir Francis Drake, the communities of Inverness Park, Inverness, and Sea Haven have also been placed under an evacuation warning. And again, this is for you to be able to prepare a go bag, prepare your home in the case you do have to leave, and also to get stuff together for your pets or other family members. If we do issue that evacuation order, or if an evacuation order comes out for your community, there's going to be a message that's included with that that tells you where to go. So if we issue an evacuation order, make sure that you look at it or listen to it as you're leaving the area, and that'll provide instruction on what you need to do. We will now move into some of the community aspects of the town hall. And I know that we received a multitude of questions for multiple panelists. And so I would like to start asking some of those questions. I know these are the important things. So the first question will be for the incident commander. And this is, I know you touched on this some, but how is the current strategy being used to fight the Woodward fire? And does the lightning and wind forecast for this weekend play a role in your strategy?
Our current strategy is both a combination of direct attack, which is fighting the fire directly, what we call 1 foot in the black. That's the safest strategy for us firefighters. But the terrain and fuels have made that difficult. So the other part of that is indirect fire line construction. And that's where we're prepping around structures, prepping along roads, prepping along trail systems to prepare that for when the fire gets close enough or conditions warrant, or when we have the opportunity to where we're going to be most successful to secure that fire edge, and that would be burning it out or indirect fire line. As far as the lightning coming in, that does have a major effect. So with any thunderstorm, there are outflow winds. Those outflow winds can push the fire direction in any direction. And that's a big concern for us. So we will have weather spotters out in areas where we can see the skyline. And it's not just looking for lightning, but we're looking for those thunderheads. We're looking for the direction of that wind flow. And firefighters on the ground are constantly monitoring the weather, and they're broadcasting it on their inter crew radios every 30 minutes to every hour, so that all firefighters have an idea of what the weather is happening at a regular time. And also, if there are new starts due to lightning, we have a plan in place that will support Marin County with additional resources. And yes, that means that we'll give up a little bit of our resources so that we don't have another new start or another new spread.
Thank you so much, Bernard. I'd now like to ask a question of Carrie Firerobin, the acting superintendent. There was a question that came in stating that this is federal land. So the community member is asking, where's the federal help? One example given was the National Guard, and I know Congressman Huffman touched on that. But Carrie, if you could please elaborate both on where's the federal help, and then also talk about the incident management team that comes in and what they bring.
Absolutely. And in fact, the federal help has been here all along, because we, with the Park Service and our immediate regional and resources, have pulled them in, and adjacent parks. And I should say also other land management agencies are supporting us as well in this effort. But with regards to the federal resources, as I mentioned, we are in a transition right now over to a federal incident management team at a type 1 team, which is really the greatest amount of resources that we can bring to bear on this effort right now. And they are coming from all over the country, and there will be a significant increase in people and equipment and activities coming here. They're here now, and more are arriving this evening, and we'll be fully up and running come tomorrow and transitioning with the county on that. So we're very pleased to have this support from the federal resources arriving.
Brenton, if I might, I was there yesterday, and Carrie or Bernard might know the exact numbers, but I saw multiple U.S. Forest Service trucks. So there are teams from other federal agencies that are absolutely on the front of this fight right now, and people should know that.
And also I would add to that the state has activated National Guard firefighting crews. So there are National Guard crews that are being activated. They will be deployed in the state. So they are the National Guard, and they are the ones that every year specific crews are identified, and they go through some specific training. And then we add regular firefighters, regular folks with those to help with safety and management. So those crews are being activated.
Thank you so much, Carrie, Bernard, and Congressman Huffman. I can also speak to the fact that when we met with the new incident management team that was coming in today, it was very impressive. It's a very squared away group of folks that will be taking the reins, and it was pretty impressive to see them arrive and how put together they were. And I think it's going to be a huge benefit, not only to the firefight, but also to the community here to have them here. So we're excited to have them and work with them through the transition process. The next question is actually for me, and this has to do with evacuations. It's kind of a 4-part question that talks about evacuation routes, and where to go. When we issue an evacuation order, we will tell you which way to evacuate. So for instance, if the community of Bellinas was to get evacuated, we have plans in place that, depending on where the fire is or where the fire is coming from, we will provide specific instructions on which way you should leave. And we would also tell you where to go when you do leave. There was a question that came in about who will guard our property if we have to evacuate, and who will prevent looting. The sheriff's office and other law enforcement agencies from out throughout Marin County would be responsible for that. I know that we've assisted multiple other agencies on fires throughout the years, and that we are prepared to not only guard your homes, but make sure that we are preventing any looting by doing patrols throughout your areas if you do have to evacuate. There was also a question if Bellinas were to receive an evacuation order, would the Stinson Beach community receive an evacuation warning? We don't know. We can't predict fire behavior, and that would be a situational call by both the sheriff's office and the incident commander about how the fire is behaving and which communities would need to be evacuated or placed under warning. So we can't predict fire behavior, but I think that it would be important for anyone on the coast to just be aware, be vigilant of your surroundings, and make sure that you're paying attention to local sources that are pushing out information. And with that, I'd like to touch real quick on how to get the most up-to-date information. We've been pushing information out via multiple avenues. If you're local to Marin County, Nextdoor has been a big way that we've been communicating with people. Social media accounts, the Marin County Fire Department, and also the Marin County Sheriff's Office and the Point Reyes National Seashore. We're sharing the same information. It usually comes out from the fire department, and then we'll share it from the Sheriff's Office and also the Point Reyes National Seashore accounts. And that's on Twitter and Facebook. The next question would be for the incident commander again. And that is, what is being done on the fire lines to prevent what happened in the Tubbs fire? And I think Chief Weber can also speak to this, being that he was here for the Tubbs fire. So Chief Weber, would you like to talk about it?
Thanks, everybody. So what's different here is that we're not under 100-mile-an-hour winds like they experienced during the Tubbs fire. Our weather is more moderate. This is predominantly a fuel and topography-driven fire, and it's not moving as fast as that. So those are the key things. And with the Tubbs fire, a lot of the challenge was the cellular phone towers down and the challenge of communication there. Again, some of the reasons why we put out the early warnings and want to make sure everybody's prepared, because we don't want to be in that situation. A lot of lessons learned, but this fire is not moving anywhere near the speed of that fire.
Thank you, Chief. The next question is, I think that both I can answer and also Acting Superintendent Fire Robin. What is being done to keep non-West Marin residents out of West Marin and keep the roads open? We've taken a few steps, and one has been public messaging about not flooding the coast. I know that a lot of people have been escaping some of the smoke by coming to the coast. We've made sure to push out consistent and accurate, timely information regarding that and asking visitors not to come to the coast, so that in the event the coast did have, or portions of the coast had to be evacuated, that we would have a clear route and we wouldn't have an influx of visitors that would inhibit that. And then I believe Carrie can speak to some of the work that her staff has been doing regarding road signage and also some of the stuff in the park.
Thank you. Yes, we are deploying changeable message signs at key intersections to indicate that the park is closed, and we have been also blasting out information with regards to the park being closed through social media, as well as it is the headline now on our park website. So we are helping and trying to get the message out as best as we can about the park being closed and to really limit access. Of course, we are maintaining access for local residents because of the activities within the park for some of the ranchers and residents who are here in the local communities. So we are doing our darndest to get that message out to stay away for now. Thank you.
Thank you, Carrie. And Bernard, you can actually leave that unmuted because the next question is for you. I believe you touched on this a little bit, but there was a question from a member in the Inverness community concerned about the wind and the impact, the direction of the wind impacts the fire.
Absolutely. Wind is the most erratic factor in fire behavior. So the stronger and faster that it blows, the more oxygen that is fed into the fire, the potential for that fire to spread. It also bends the flame height down closer to the fuels, preheating fuels, and that speeds up the spread of the fire as well. So wind is a big factor. The other thing that affects that wind is terrain. So as wind is coming off the ocean or to the north, terrain interferes with that wind flow. So once the wind hits that, what we're seeing here is wind is coming in and hitting that ridge line, that main mountain that makes up the peninsula. And that is directing the wind flow. And sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad. So what we're seeing on the back side or the east side of that ridge is a little bit of sheltering, partly from the timber and mostly from that ridge. Whereas on the coastal side, it is getting more direct wind impact, if that answers the question.
Thank you very much for that, Bernard. I believe it answered the question for me. I didn't know that much about wind, so thank you for explaining that. The next question is from a community member in Inverness, talking about preventing people from coming to beaches and other key roads. I believe that I touched on that already, but we do have signage out at all of main access points. We even have signs or messages that are being displayed near the 101 corridor talking about not coming to West Marin, trying to get the word out and asking that visitors do not come here. We have signs at Sir Francis Drake and Highway 1 just south of Point Reyes that is asking visitors not to enter the area, local traffic, and that the Point Reyes National Seashore is closed. And I know that it took a lot of work on Carrie's end, and there was a lot of conversations that took place to close the Point Reyes National Seashore, but I think it was done out of an abundance of caution and to make sure that we're keeping the West Marin community as safe as possible. And in the event of an evacuation, that we would have the greatest success in evacuating the community if we did that. So I know there was a lot of key conversations, that took place. And there was a lot of work done on the back end to make that happen. So thank you, Carrie. The next question is also for Carrie, and this is, what is the prognosis for the structures that are part of the Point Reyes National Seashore?
Yeah. I'll help with that. So we evaluate each and every structure that would be in the fire area or threatened by fire. Sometimes that happens well in advance if we have the time and we have the resources. Sometimes it happens in the spur of the moment when the fire reaches that area. So at some point, you may see firefighters out driving around slow. They're looking at what's out there. Every firefighter is that they're moving around or going into a new area. That's what they're doing. They're assessing what's on the ground, what the fuel type is, what the threats are there structures, are there people in the area? As far as the structures here, there are good structures that are going to be easily defended, and then there are structures out there that are going to take some work. That'll be difficult, and that'll also depend a lot on the fire behavior at the time when the fire gets there.
Thank you, Bernard. And actually, the next question is also going to be for you. You're quite popular this evening, as you should be as the incident commander. What prohibited bulldozers from being used earlier? And I know that there was a comment in a press conference that we had a few days ago about this fire being on federal lands and a lot of rumors that this fire was just going to be let burn. So can you speak a little bit about that and what decisions were made, and also a little bit about the fire incident management plan here for Point Reyes National Seashore?
I'll focus on the dozer operations and what we're doing. Absolutely. So number one, this is a national seashore. It is a protected site. There is management plans in place. We try to use those tools responsibly. We currently have every tool in the firefighting book available to us. Having said that, as an IC, and as a National Park Service employee, I'm about preserving what I can and protecting what I can. And that includes not only structures and life safety, but the natural environment. Dozers aren't always the best tool in the best fuel type. We evaluated early on the use of bulldozers, and we were in consultation with the park. There are rules in place on using bulldozers in the park, but those tools weren't taken away from us. But we did take a good hard look. Where are we going to use those dozers, and where are they going to be most effective? And hopefully the helicopter noise isn't too loud, and that's a good sign for you all. But we evaluate those areas where we're going to use bulldozers, and we want to make sure that if we're going to put a dozer blade in the dirt and we're going to push over trees or brush and make that dozer line, that scar is going to be there for a period of time, and that we want to make sure that if we're going to do that, we're going to be successful. And that's probably the key part, is that We don't want to do damage unless we're going to be successful in containing and holding that fire. And that's the process. We go through that first, and then we go to the management practice or the management team for the park and say, this is what we want to do. And that usually happens fairly quickly. So yes, we do have 2 bulldozers currently in the park building fire line and being prepared and to move to protect structures. So we have them. We have every tool in the book available to us. Some of those we need to evaluate whether that's the right tool in the right place at the right time.
Thank you very much, Bernard. And I know that I can speak to the fact that I've heard multiple conversations about the use of bulldozers. And I think it's important for everyone to remember how steep the terrain is there and how hard it can be to get some of that equipment in there and how difficult it can be to access some of those areas. So I know I've heard multiple conversations about it, so thank you for clarifying. The next question is for Chief Krakauer in bellinas. And the question is, what is being done to protect the bellinas community from the advancement of the fire? And what should bellinas residents do? I'm sorry, I misstated. What should bellinas residents be prepared for if they have to evacuate?
Yeah, so the first part of that question, the fire is still north of the Bear Valley Trail. And as you listen to the IC, still a ways away from bellinas and not moving this way at a significant rate of spread. So we need to be prepared, like I mentioned, and maybe I can clarify. We need to be ready in case things change. If the warning becomes an order, we need to be ready to leave at a moment's notice. So that's what we need to do as residents of bellinas, is be prepared and ready to leave if we have to.
Thank you very much, Chief. The next question was related to also about evacuation warnings versus orders. An evacuation warning is simply that we're letting you know that there is a possibility for an evacuation. There may be a danger posed, but it hasn't reached the level where we're asking you to leave your home. The reason we issued the evacuation warnings again is out of abundance of caution, both based on conversations with the incident commander, the behavior of the fire, and also looking at the topography and the ingress and egress from our communities and how much time it would take if that was necessary. So I would hope that everyone in the communities that we have placed under an evacuation warning has a go bag. You're keeping your electronic devices charged, and that you've thought about an exit plan if you do have to leave. Think about the roads that are around you. Think about the vegetation that's around you. And I think it's also an important time to bring up defensible space, and that a defensible space around a structure can make a huge difference in what happens to your structure or how fast the fire moves around a structure. And I know you can find a lot of great information on the online on several social media platforms, and also information is pushed out often from Fire Safe Marin, and they have a lot of great resources on there. I believe that is about wraps up our time here. So I'd like to take this time to thank all of the panelists for joining us, the elected officials, the fire chiefs, and also the representatives from the Point Reyes National Seashore for making yourselves available for this very important community meeting. I know everyone has very busy schedules, so thank you very much for joining. I'd also like to remind you to sign up for alertmarin.org if you are a Marin County resident or you work in Marin County. You can go to alertmarin.org, and there's a way to register multiple addresses and phone numbers to make sure that you receive the most up-to-date information or the emergency notifications that you need to either save yourselves or to get out of somewhere that you shouldn't be. In addition to that, please sign up for Nixle. You can do that by texting your zip code to 888-777, or you can go to nixle.com and register. Supervisor Rodoni, did you have any closing comments?
Just to remind our residents that they need to follow the directives that are given to them. And if they're told to leave, please get out, because the best chance for our first responders are to not have to deal with residents at the same time to fighting a fire in your community. So I really hope they follow the orders, and I thank everyone on this Zoom tonight. It's been very resourceful, and I'm right here in the valley. I'm looking at the fire almost every minute, and I'm really pleased at what I'm seeing. I love the response we're seeing and the cooperation that's going on. And you know, in particular, like I said earlier, the air support has been tremendous, and want to thank you all for what you're doing, and thank all the people behind the scenes that are providing things for you so you can do your job. So thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Supervisor. Did anybody else have any closing comments before we end the town hall? I'm seeing none. I'd like to also special thank you to our American Sign Language interpreter who is on the screen. Fantastic job. And I'd also like to thank those behind the scenes that provided the captioning and also the Spanish translation for our town hall. Take care, be safe, be vigilant, and stay safe, Marin. Thank you so much.